alpha can be affected very rapidly by very quick changes in heart rate. How quickly can you change your heart rate? In a matter of a single beat, right? You can go from being right now at 70 beats per minute to 10 seconds from now being at 120 beats per minute. So it's a very rapid thing we can do to increase that. Now, can this change? What does this really mean? This really means that my heart's going to be harder or weaker, right? The harder my heart beats, the greater the force of contraction. This number goes up. The lower the force of contraction, this number goes down. Now, is that something, you're not aware of it necessarily, but you think, is that something you can change? Over time, yes. Yeah. What if I just, yeah, question?
Exercise of the heart muscle, the cardio, would that help to strengthen the overall shape?
Sure. If you exercise any muscle, right, including cardiac, it's going to respond by having more myofibrils and therefore being able to contract harder. So yes, with cardiovascular training, over time, I do develop a greater ability to affect my stroke volume, which is why people that are cardiovascularly fit, this number doesn't change as much, does it? So people that are not fit, what's the easiest thing everybody can do? Change your heart rate. Can everybody change this? No, not very well at all. You have to do that with training to do that. Now, obviously, it's better for your heart in the long run to beat fewer beats per minute over the course of your life, right? Does that make sense? So with cardiovascular training, it makes sense that we develop an ability to increase stroke volume so that we can save the kind of number of times our heart has to beat per minute. Is that okay? Right with that? So heart rate's easy. We'll look at why a little bit, or probably on Monday or something. But basically, the way you affect your heart rate is through sympathetic stimulation. It does what to your heart rate? Increase it or decrease it? It's going to increase your heart rate. Parasympathetic stimulation. That's going to decrease your heart rate. Does that make sense? Any there? All right. Now then, what about stroke volume? What can we say about stroke volume? So let's look at that one. So that's something that's not as obvious, I think, is the effect of stroke volume. What are we can divide the factors that affect stroke volume up into 3 different categories. And these are categories that are going to affect stroke volume before the ventricles contract. So that's going to be one of them. While they're contracting, that's going to be another thing. And then, I guess, kind of after they contract or independent of their contraction. So these things that affect stroke volume, I'm going to call them preload. These are things that affect the force with which the ventricles beat even before they beat. Something called contractility. This is something that affects the ventricles while they're contracting. So during ventricular systole, we do something to make the ventricles beat harder. And then this is not really an issue in normal physiology, but something called afterload. Something that affects stroke volume kind of independent of whether or not the ventricles are contracting or about to contract. That's called afterload. So preload, contractility, and afterload. All right, so let me tell you a little bit about preload.